Now that we have our dimensions, we're going to go ahead and start cutting the fabric for this chair. The first thing I check is the width of my fabric. Usually they come in 54 inches or larger, so I'm going to check to see how wide this actually is. This one is 56 inches wide, which means we should be able to reasonably split it at a 28-inch width split. Once we've taken a mental note of how wide the fabric is, we're going to look at the dimensions that we previously recorded. When I look at my potential cuts, I like to look at the largest dimensions and which dimensions can be split as well with that 28. So I see here that my largest dimension is my inside back's height of 38 inches, and it can be split at 28 inches wide. So I'm going to check the next set of dimensions that can be split at the 28 inches wide and see how many other cuts I can get out of this first section. I've noticed that I can get both my inside back, my outside back, and my border from that 38-inch height with the split of 28 inches up the middle. I always like to start with my largest cuts first, because if I make a mistake on the large cuts, I can more likely use that large cut that the mistake occurred on another section instead that is smaller. Now that we've finished those sections, let's cross them off so we know they're done, and then move on to the next largest dimension in height. I see here that the next largest dimension is 32 inches high, and I also notice that it cannot be split, so I'm going to go ahead and just make a straight cut at the 32 inches high point on the fabric. Also, as you make each cut, make sure that you note which section it is by labeling it with chalk. After cutting the seat, we're going to move on to our next largest dimension, which is going to be the 22 inches high on the inside arms, and there will be 2 of them. As I cut these, I'm going to leave the remaining remnants attached to the roll because I'm going to use them for my panels later. Those are done. We're going to cross them off our list, and now we're going to move on to our outside arms. This is going to be the last section we're going to cut before we pattern our panels and inside back and cut our welt. Again, there will be 2 of this cut. After we're done cutting and notating the outside arms, we're going to move on to our panels, which we previously patterned in the last video. You may notice that I left this extra fabric here. When I cut it out, that fabric is what lays over the edge of the arm underneath the welt, and that's the part we staple. Now, I'm not going to pattern the inside back yet because I don't want to remove it and disturb the padding. So as I do the upholstery videos in the future, I will show you the patterning of this inside back. It is pretty straightforward, but I'll show you later. After we've finished all those cuts, we're going to go ahead and cut our welt. I like to mark the end of the welt so that way I can make sure when I sew it together, the grain all runs in the same direction. Now, this was just a quick video for this specific chair. If you have any questions, I may have missed some information that I need to put out there on it. Just let me know, ask questions. I'll be happy to answer them. This is a process that's kind of hard to explain, mostly because there's several factors you have to take into consideration. So I tried my best with explaining this one. I am open to answering questions. And there are pieces of software out there available that I do know designers use that will actually pre-notate on a piece of paper how your dimensions with each cut should fall within the roll of fabric. So if you're intimidated by this, there is software out there you can download that can help you. Plus, I recommend if you're new to it and you're not fully confident, mark your chalk marks out along the entire strip of fabric before making your cuts. That way, if you have to adjust it, maybe you run short on fabric and you can shift your cuts around to fill in the empty spaces, go ahead and make those marks before doing the cuts fully.